The Art and Science of Behavioral Economics by Dan Ariely is a warm, insightful, and unexpectedly personal take on how behavioral economics intersects with daily life. Written with a tone that's equal parts curious, humorous, and tender, the book centers around a central question: how do we make decisions that matter, and why do we so often make the wrong ones, even when we deeply care? Framed through the lens of a real story involving a sick dog and the financial and emotional decisions that followed, Ariely draws out broader lessons about love, irrationality, and human behavior. The book begins with the premise that we don't treat all decisions the same, even when stakes are objectively higher. Faced with his dog's sudden illness and the astronomical costs of treatment, Ariely reflects on how logic, emotion, and cognitive bias all collide. He uses this highly personal dilemma to show how behavioral economics isn't just about shopping habits or market analysis. It's about how we weigh values under pressure, uncertainty, and emotion. Ariely gently confronts the tension between cost-benefit analysis and emotional instinct. When the stakes are deeply emotional, saving a beloved pet, helping a family member, or making life-altering decisions, our rational brains often take a back seat. In these moments, he shows how people employ motivated reasoning, bending logic to serve emotional ends. Rather than dismissing this as weakness, he explores how it's a fundamental part of being human. What emerges is a nuanced discussion of value, how we define it, and how context changes it. Saving a dog for $10,000 might seem irrational on paper, but Ariely invites readers to reconsider how we define worth when something, or someone, is deeply loved. He argues that economics can't be separated from emotion and that any model that tries is fundamentally flawed. The book explores opportunity cost in a way that's unusually human. Rather than calculating it through abstract examples, Ariely places it in lived experience. What else could that $10,000 have done? Could it have been used to help others, build savings, or invest in the future? Yes, but would any of those choices bring the same sense of meaning or connection? He doesn't provide a tidy answer but instead suggests we become more aware of the trade-offs our hearts often conceal. Gentle provocation to explore moral licensing, the idea that doing something good can subconsciously give us permission to do something bad afterward. In the context of money and morality, this shows up in everyday choices. You might donate to charity and then overspend on luxury. Or sacrifice for a loved one and then neglect other responsibilities. Recognizing these patterns is the first step to reshaping them. Throughout the book, trust and agency play a central role. We often outsource decision-making to experts, especially under stress. Ariely examines how this affects medical decisions, financial planning, and even relationships. When you're told a treatment might help, but might not, how do you weigh the odds? Who do you trust, and why? He argues that trust is a fragile but necessary part of decision-making, often built on signals that aren't fully rational. Another standout thread in the book is how framing affects choices. Ariely shows how the same decision, presented in a different light, leads to dramatically different outcomes. A $1,000 surgery feels different if framed as life-saving versus high-risk. This isn't just marketing, it's the mind's way of making sense of uncertainty. He urges readers to be skeptical of frames and to reframe decisions in ways that align with their real values. The book doesn't just analyze, it offers insight into design. If we understand our biases and how they manifest, we can structure choices better. For instance, creating pause points in decision-making or asking different kinds of questions, what would I advise a friend in this situation, can reduce the grip of emotion without ignoring it. Ariely believes in compassionate design, setting up environments that respect both the logic and emotion in us. Ariely's personal narrative continues to weave through the chapters, showing the long tail of big decisions. He doesn't pretend there's a perfect answer to whether the money was well spent, only that it was a decision that brought clarity to his priorities. This honesty, acknowledging that not all choices feel good even when they are right, adds weight to his argument that behavioral economics must embrace ambiguity. He also explores how memory and time distort decision-making. The peak-end rule, for instance, explains how we judge experiences based on their most intense moments and their conclusions. In the case of illness, caregiving, and emotional spending, this skews our perceptions of value and sacrifice. Ariely proposes that understanding memory's distortions can help us make peace with hard choices, rather than endlessly question them. A key theme, explored through both monetary and emotional lenses. We tend to fear loss more than we value gain, so much so that we make poor long-term choices to avoid short-term pain. This bias becomes especially intense in high-stakes emotional contexts. Ariely suggests using psychological accounting to reframe loss as a form of investment in meaning, though he also warns of the dangers of delusion. Toward the latter part of the book, Ariely discusses empathy gaps, how we fail to predict our own future emotional states. We assume we'll feel the same tomorrow as we do today, leading to poor preparation or sudden regret. In financial planning or care decisions, this gap becomes treacherous. Ariely advocates for slowing down decisions that involve high uncertainty, and even simulating different emotional outcomes as a way to ground judgment. He also touches on the concept of fairness, not as a universal law, but as a deeply subjective, often irrational standard. People feel better about spending or sacrificing when the process feels fair, even if the outcome is suboptimal. In many of the decisions we make for others, children, pets, partners, fairness becomes a moral anchor, shaping what feels right even when logic suggests otherwise. In the end, Save My Dog is less about a specific solution and more about a way of seeing. It urges readers to approach decision-making with empathy, curiosity, and humility. Behavioral economics, Ariely argues, is not just about better predictions, it's about better understanding. And when decisions involve those we love, understanding ourselves may be the most important step of all.